I remember the moment where I came to understand. You mentioned titles. It was at the Miss America pageant, and I was standing on stage. I was Miss Illinois. I was standing next to Miss Kentucky. And we're down to the last two, and we're standing there, and we're both lying to each other. I hope it's you. No, I hope it's you. And we're thinking, I really want it to be me. And then they called my name first, which meant I was the first runner-up, and she was the winner. And it's people say, oh, you were so lucky to get that close. I'm like, no, it's the worst position to end up in because you end up answering your top 5 question for the rest of your life in your head.
Hello, this is Kendall Qualls, and this is Fully Charged. On this podcast, we counter the progressive narrative and give you a perspective you'll never hear conveyed in the public arena. Thanks for joining us, and I'm here today with Jade Simmons, and I'm so excited to have her. She is going to be our keynote speaker on September 29th. Now, in the time frame that we have, I could spend a whole session talking about her bio, but I'm going to actually give you just the highlights of Jade's background and her accomplishments. She is an internationally acclaimed and inspiring performer and speaker, internationally acclaimed, highly sought after by Fortune 100 companies. She's been nicknamed the classical music maverick in the country. She's a concert-level pianist. She's an author as well, and your book, Audacious Prayers for World Changers. And by the way, just in her spare time, she also ran for president of the United States as an independent in the last election cycle. Jade, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kendall. Good to see you.
Well, you know, it seems that you have a breadth of experiences and passions. Where does that come from? Just give us an idea from that level of concert pianist. And I didn't mention any of the titles you won and
Sure.
your background. I'll let you talk about that. But the breadth of that, give us the passion and energy, where that comes from.
Yeah, you know, I honestly grew up with an abundance of riches where parents are concerned. I really won the lottery. I was blessed to have both sets of grandparents for most of my childhood as well. And the way that my parents raised me and my sister was they said yes to everything we wanted to try. Only problem was I just kept saying yes. I didn't put anything down. So I played multiple sports. Growing up was extremely competitive, multiple instruments, all the levels of student council, youth orchestra, marching band. I did it all. And people were always trying to get me to choose, Kendall. They said, you got to pick one thing. You got to focus. And I could never pick one thing, but it didn't feel out of focus. And so today I make my career because of that breadth. I use music and inspiration to impact audiences around the world. Outside of the music as well. You know, the music comes with me, but I'm speaking about messages regarding purpose and breakthrough, innovation, leadership, record breaking. So I'm happy for my childhood because I believe it's a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
So in your bio, I read that you went to Rice University, and then I saw something about Northwestern as well.
Yes, that's right.
Two opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
Give us that background.
I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, originally. And my mother worked in higher education. And my father was a blue collar worker, and he's also a civil rights activist. So I had an incredible experience growing up of being exposed to lots of things. And when it was time to go to college, I wanted to go to Northwestern because they had an incredible music school. And then I did my graduate degree at Rice University here in Houston, Texas. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We have 2 kids, and we stayed here to make our home in Texas. So we've been around, and Houston is where we've landed.
Okay. So when I read your background, one of my favorite people that I follow that's been in the public arena for a long time is Condoleezza Rice.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that she's a concert level pianist. And then when I read that, I said, wow, what a similar background.
Yeah.
And then I kept reading and like, what? I'm even more impressed. So you performed all over the country with that. Tell us, how do you incorporate your music into your talks and into your presentations with audiences?
I believe a lot in setting the tone, and music helps me do that. So if I'm talking about the need to reinvent, or in business, the importance of improvisation where leadership is concerned, I can easily turn to the piano and literally illustrate what it looks like to change genres, to keep the main thing, but be able to shift things enough so that you can lead people to where you want them to go. And I often bring people on stage with me, spoiler alert, and they are never concert trained pianists, but somehow they end up playing the piano with me, which is, I think, a very visible reminder to everyone of what's possible, that we may be sitting on gifts or sitting on gifts that need to be resurrected. And that, I believe strongly that your gifts make room for you. And in my case, they've made room for me in very unexpected rooms. And I think it's powerful to be able to bring all of ourselves to every single table, every single time, and watch what kind of impact that yields.
So, Jade, when you and I initially spoke, we talked about the mission of Take Charge.
Yeah.
That the promise of America is available to anyone, regardless of race, regardless of social standing, and that a lot of the issues that we deal with in our culture today in the Black community it's a lot of the issues we're weighted with is our children. When you grow up without a father,
Yeah.
that handicap doesn't allow you to see the opportunities because you're catching up to so many different things and
That's right.
the trauma of your childhood. That message, I mean, what resonated with you that this is something I want to help support?
Yeah.
And be a part of. Could you share that, please?
Of course. First of all, thank you for the work that you're doing in the Twin Cities and broader. I think, like you said in the introduction, the topics that need to see the light of day are rarely the ones that we hear about, especially in political season. And what I tell people all the time, when I ran as an independent, they'd say, well, you got to pick a side. Why don't you pick a side? And I say, we're getting to a place now where the only thing that picking a side does is create a sort of sense of powerlessness amongst people who are feeling cornered by fear when it comes to voting or when it comes to their political power. And the idea of literally taking charge is what I teach people to do as individuals that I coach. It's what I teach my children to do. And I think I think where the problem comes, Kendall, is people think you can't have both. You can both take charge and take responsibility and also keep your eyes on the lookout for opportunities to serve. And I think that's what servant leadership really is. It's not ignoring, like you say very clearly, that certain problems still exist. There will unfortunately probably always be racism. But at some point, when do we get to say that I do not have to be limited by the evils of this world, whether or not everyone feels they exist? I don't have to be limited by them. And I also believe that you can say out of the same side of your mouth that those evils exist and we must do something to stop the blockage of access that they create. But I think the most power we have, I say this to people Kendall, who will come up to me and ask for prayer on a Sunday. I say, I want to pray for you, but I need you to know that you have even more authority than I do when it comes to your household and your prayers penetrating the ceiling, so to speak. So I'm always ready to lend an ear, lend a hand. We practice radical generosity in my family and in my business. But I think the most powerful thing you can do is realize how much power we have and how much purpose has been implanted in us to enact that power.
Well, that is so refreshing to hear. I mean, we have volunteers that come and join what we're doing every month. New faces,
Wow.
New people. And they feel like they've never had a voice. They could never say anything because to the point, these things can't be said out loud.
That's right.
Yes, there are issues and there are problems. We're never going to have a problem-free world, right?
That's right.
But, God has given us a power of action and a power, of positive energy. So one of the things that we're doing, and I'd like to get your comment on this, I'm really excited about it. We're initiating a resource for pastors, priests of churches. We're going to give them a tool. It's called the Fatherhood Impact Award.
Wow.
They can nominate up to 3 men in their churches that they want to recognize on Father's Day, and we provide the certificate. We provide the book, the awards, and a monetary gift card. But we're also going to take their photographs on stage, and we're going to put an ad in the paper so people see what good looks like. We need to start uplifting. If we want more fathers engaged in families, we need to elevate and we need to reward what good looks like.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I will tell you that when I was running, one of the platforms that got a ton of attention was that even as a female candidate, we had a lot to say about how we saw men and how we believed men should be treated. That even in a fight for equality that many women find themselves in, it didn't mean the negation of man. That we were most powerful together. And as someone married to her high school sweetheart, an extremely independent woman who has done some things that are outside of the norm when you think about maybe what a woman should do, I cannot imagine doing it without the support of my husband. You know, the type of husband and father that he is should be celebrated. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this award. And I think if nothing else, it's like you said, we don't, especially in the Black community, rarely, probably since the character of Phil, in Bill and the Cosby Show, have we actually seen a positive image of a strong, prosperous Black man in the media. So to be able to see it in our real lives on the stages of the churches that we belong to, I think will be a very powerful statement. So thank you in advance.
Well, you bet. I hope this goes national. I'm sure it's going to go national. But anyway, I want to share that with you.
Yeah.
We're so looking forward to you coming. You've illustrated a little bit about what you're going to do. I mean, can you share some of the main points that you like to get across the audience?
Sure.
And you don't have to do the spoil it too much for us.
Oh, it's okay. I change up everything for every audience. It's one of my trademarks. Is we say I customize to death, or I like to say customize to life. You mentioned my book, Audacious Prayers. I actually just released my brand new book called Purpose: The Remix. A mind-blowing re-understanding of purpose and how it works. And the main thrust of my message, especially in the days that we're in, is understanding that purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. So our purpose is not to be a parent, but our purpose is what's breaking out in our children because we are their parents. No one can parent our kids like we do. I feel like our kids were assigned to us for a very special reason. Sometimes I find myself asking God why I got my 15-year-old son, right? But I realize that there are things in him that only I can speak into and only his father can speak into. And I think unleashing your purpose from a title or a role or a job or an industry, which we know those things can change, and understanding that purpose gets to ride with you in any vehicle you choose. It's your outbreak effect. I spend a good bit of time illustrating that. And the reason I wrote the book, Kendall, is because people were hearing that one statement about what purpose is not and what it is. They were quitting their jobs. They were starting businesses, going into the ministry because of that one statement. So I knew there was something there, that there was a moment to really redefine purpose that really put it at the heart of serving, but also still freed us from people. I always say, because I know what my purpose is, I care too much about people to be stopped by people. Right. So, the things that people don't want to hear, I have to say it because it's a part of my purpose. And so that's a big part of the message that I'll share.
It's interesting when people have they rethink that. They get a chance to revalidate or invalidate.
That's right.
Those assumptions about their purpose.
Listen, the reason I'm the expert on this topic is because I'm the one who wrote the script at about 6 years old and watched it get ripped up at every turn. I am detour central. And I remember the moment where I came to understand. You mentioned titles. It was at the Miss America pageant. And I was standing on stage. I was Miss Illinois. I was standing next to Miss Kentucky. And we're down to the last two. And we're standing there and we're both lying to each other. I hope it's you. No, I hope it's you. And we're thinking, I really want it to be me. And then they called my name first, which meant I was the first runner up and she was the winner. And people say, oh, you were so lucky to get that close. I'm like, no, it's the worst position to end up in because you end up answering your top 5 question for the rest of your life in your head. But what I remember is how disappointed I was that I'd lost because I'd worked so hard and felt like I'd really competed very well. And the next day hurt so hard because you spend more than a year getting ready for that moment. Now, this will sound like an interesting way to see the bright side, but my platform was youth suicide prevention. Okay. Right before the Miss America pageant happened, Columbine, one of the first kind of nationally televised school shootings, had happened. Jonesboro, Arkansas was either right before or right after that. Suddenly, mental health, youth violence, and youth suicide was the hot button issue. That year at Miss America, there was some scandal with the upper leadership. The actual winner didn't get to start speaking on her topic for almost 6 months. But because mine was a hot topic issue, I ended up testifying in front of Congress almost immediately on mental health funding. And I began speaking all over the nation, not just the state of Illinois, because this now was a pressing issue. So I didn't have the title. I was first runner up. I didn't have the New York penthouse, and I was not on Dave Letterman. I had my outfit all picked out and ready to go, Kendall. But I'll tell you what, I was instantly of service, instantly of use. Of that year changed my entire life. That's when I realized I had a gift for speaking to any audience, from kids to corporate. And it became a trademark of who I was, even as an artist. This is when I understood that a lot of times life is happening for you and not to you. And that mindset has stayed with me, and I'm able to see these detours now as divine reframes, that a lot of times when I think I don't win or I feel rejected, I'm being divinely directed or divinely protected in the direction I'm supposed to go.
This is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
I still look forward to you coming to join us. You know, I saw you in a campaign picture, and you had a phrase across your T-shirt. Do you remember what that was?
I do, because we took a big risk in having that phrase. Shouldn't have been a risk, but it was. It said, "One nation, under God, indivisible." And I ran under the kind of campaign committee of Operation Restoration. And I stand by this, that we were the first to talk about restoring the soul of the nation. I will leave it at that. We used it first, and we saw it starting to pop up in other circles. But the vision on my heart was one of restoration. I felt like with the heightened rhetoric, real American people were being led to believe that we had less in common than we really did, and that our purpose wasn't what it was. You talk a lot about the notion of the nation, which I believe is a very powerful one. Now, do I believe we've realized that purpose yet? No, I think we have a long way to go, but I do think it's a lot more possible than we think. And man, when we traveled, Kendall, we expected to see these people seething at the mouth and foaming, and we met people on every side of the aisle. And the funny thing is, no matter who I talked to, they swore I was in their party. Didn't matter if it was a third party, the right or the left. And we would say, no, we promise we really are independent, but look at that. That means there are actually policies that can serve a broader demographic. Yes. And that was, I'll tell you, it was one of the most inspiring things to know that we weren't the nation being displayed to us in the media.
Well, having been a candidate, I know the courage it takes, and I know the effort it takes.
You do.
It's a thankless job, but you don't do it to be thanked, right? You do it because you're serving, right?
You better not. I'll tell you what, you better not. You know, it was so funny. People would accuse me. They say, oh, you're trying to get a one-liner on your resume. And I said, no, this one-liner hurts me. You know, not only did COVID happen, but so many corporations who didn't want to be openly seen as political canceled their engagements, you know, so we harmed ourselves in that way. But I'll tell you what, when you feel called to do a thing, what I believe in advance is, why would, you know, I would say to God, I know you wouldn't ask me to step out on this limb and have it break. So I trust that you're going to carry me. And I will tell you, for anyone who's in that season, the year after we ran, we had a banner year. In my business. And it's funny, that one-liner that they ran away from was now the thing they couldn't wait to say in the introduction, right? So, but the people who thought we were doing it for attention or to be celebrated, it was the opposite. You probably experienced it when you run, even sometimes the people closest to you or the people in the church or in the community aren't the ones who come out as vocally as you would have expected, even though you've spent years sowing into those relationships. So you got to have tough skin, and you have to remember what winning really is, and the mission and vision behind what you're doing.
Exactly. Well, listen, I am enthusiastic about your attendance, and so is the people around here when they got a chance to see your initial flyer.
Yay.
So again, you're going to be here September 29th. We got
Yes.
everything set and ready for you. So with that said, Jade, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching Fully Charged. We created this podcast to counter the progressive narrative and give you the other side of the story you never hear. If you like what you see on our podcast and believe we're doing a good job, please consider subscribing and giving us a 5-star rating. And importantly, go to our website, share it with friends and family. To find out more about our organization, Take Charge, go to TakeChargeMN, that's MikeNovember.com, TakeChargeMN.com, and consider supporting us. Your support helps us spread the message. We'll be back soon with more of the perspective you never hear.